may I just make a couple of comments? One is about the first question about how should India integrate with China or not or whatever. First of all, I think every country that has its own trade policy inevitably must consider first and foremost its own national interests before it proceeds to down a particular path. Having spent quite a lot of time in China over the last 40 years serving as a diplomat, one abiding impression I have is that China does nothing, literally nothing, without very clearly defining what its interests in such a policy, action or activity are. It is very clearly focused on what is in China's interests first and foremost. Now, as far as India is concerned, India obviously has its own special situation, just like every other nation is. So it's really up to India to make that decision, I think, rather than to have a prescription or a template to follow particularly. But I think the key point really is also, rather than just talking about the somewhat limited subject of integration with China, is the point that Simon Tay also just made now, and that is that China is, of course, a huge economy and a growth centre in the world and driving a lot of economic change and development in this region. But it is only one country in this region, and it is part of a global community that is well beyond the Indo-Pacific region. It goes well beyond, of course, with the United States in particular, but also with Europe and elsewhere. So I think it's very important, as I tried to make the point in my remarks, is to think of global solutions rather than bilateral solutions or nationalistic solutions to trade regulation. And the other point I wanted to make really is that we are all in this room all conscious of Industry 4.0, artificial intelligence, smart cities, and all of those things. But a lot of it is just happening so fast that there is no framework to manage it in an appropriate way. And we really need to pay attention to that, because it is really being taken away from, by the fast pace of global development, it's being taken away from our own national borders to a global issue.
Thank you. Let me use my prerogative as chair, because I noticed that the entire discussion here is, again, as I said right in the beginning, that liberalization has focused on manufactured products. Now, if we really want everybody to grow, should we not also look at the rules that have governed one sector where the largest number of people around the world are involved, which is agriculture? And their produce, does it have the same ease of access around the world as manufactured? And that's a question that we'll have to ask. If we look at new design of a multilateral trading system, yeah, I think if anybody would like to answer that, do you think agriculture should be a focus in the new, in a sense, can we make it reach the same level of liberalization as manufactured products?
I've got no agriculture, so maybe I'll just start. Well, no, I'm joking, but I think that the little I know about agriculture suggests that we are really have a very divided economy, right? We have the really basic smallholders and political vote holders. So really that creates a constituency which is very hard to open up. On the other hand, you see really agribusinesses, and I think that is where in many areas we see developing countries being stymied from exports to market access because of environmental or sanitary and phytosanitary rules. Some are real, some are not. So I think that we are, particularly ASEAN, at the cusp of trying to focus on that second lot, the agribusinesses, and trying to move up the value chain. so that we treat it more like a processed and industrial product and get higher value added rather than the truly low end. But that creates the tension within the social policies at home, right? Because on top of, while there are some large agribusinesses, often their supply chain has a million smallholders like palm oil. You know what I mean? Really, so then you see this tension both nationally and in regional trade. So I think that in that sense, the agribusinesses are an area where there's a lot of growth potentially, but because of the competitive issues with the other producers in the West, you will see a lot of pushback. The thing I think that I'm more keen on is services actually. I know this is a very strong point for India. I think that services are an essential part of manufacturing and products now. And without that, we can't really progress much further. Yeah, you look at most FTAs, they tend to leave services out of it completely. So it's something that we really got to think very hard about, and there's a lot of value to capture there.
Thank you. We can just at best have 1 more minute. So 1 more question, anyone?
Let me try to address your comment.
Yes, and you could perhaps also answer, because I heard the comment that you all see China as a big market, and so does it is a big market. We also see it as a big market. But the countries which are much more integrated with China than India, do they see it as a market that is open for finished products or only for raw materials and intermediates? And I would like to hear your comments from your experiences.
Actually, let me address your question about the agricultural liberalization. In the case of Thailand, as Professor Simon said, that we have many smallholders, farmers in our countries, and the government try to do a lot to help them to upgrade them to be a smart farmer, something like that. But you can see that many government fails to do so. So I'm not sure whether it will be promising for upgrading our farmers, but I can see the trend in Thailand that the big business change their business model. They try to incorporate smallholders into their business plan to some kind of contract farming, something like that. They can transfer the technology, and of course they get the profit from doing that, but this way they try to be more friendly to smallholders to upgrade themselves, something like that. So if this trend coming in the future, I think that the agricultural sector in our countries and in other countries may be more ready to open up themselves. Yeah.
Please.
Sorry, Vietnam #1 trading partner with among ASEAN country. Vietnam #1, and China is also our #1 trading partner, right? So for every more than $4, our trade $1 with China. So if we look at the structure of our trade with China, so we suffer huge deficit with China. But #1 among the deficit, there's intermediate goods. So that's about the investment and production network, right? And also participation of the Vietnam SME in the GVC production network. And #2 in the deficit between Vietnam and China at the equipment, capital goods, right? So that's about ODA, investment, or many other things. But if we look at the finance, consumption goods, we are more or less, balanced between 2 countries. And even over the last 3 years, export from Vietnam increased in that sense much faster than from China, right? Particularly agriculture product and some manufacturing finance product. So I think thinking about China, there's a finance market for the finance goods. And China now under restructuring, but also thinking about the investment production network and competitiveness of the SMEs.
ครับ ขอบคุณครับ ท่านประธานครับ ขออนุญาต Q&A นะครับ ท่านประธานครับ เมื่อกี้ท่านพูดถึงเรื่องของ agricultural sector นะครับ ซึ่ง agricultural sector เนี่ย เป็น sector ที่ มี ความสำคัญ ใน การ ที่จะ drive เศรษฐกิจ ของ ประเทศ ไทย นะครับ โดย เฉพาะ ใน ภาค การเกษตร นะครับ ซึ่ง เป็น sector ที่ มี ความ สำคัญ ใน การ ที่จะ drive เศรษฐกิจ ของ ประเทศ ไทย นะครับ โดย เฉพาะ ใน ภาค การเกษตร นะครับ ซึ่ง เป็น sector ที่ มี ความ สำคัญ ใน การ ที่จะ drive เศรษฐกิจ ของ ประเทศ ไทย นะครับ Thank you very much sharing your Vietnam experience. Obviously, it's a good experience. Unfortunately, in India, we have a slightly different view of things, where we have been trying to access the Chinese market as lucrative as it is, but without too much of success. Maybe we have to try harder. I think with these words, we should close this session. We are just 5 minutes over time. Thank you very much, all of you. And of course, the bottom line really is that, and this I'm borrowing from a professor that we heard yesterday, that the new rules-based economy and globalization will have to move away from this quarterly reporting to shareholders in terms of the profits that the corporations make, to something called social enterprise, which not only creates profits but also creates values and blended values. And that is a huge philosophical shift that corporations will have to do, so that everybody around the world has a buy-in and becomes a stakeholder in the process of globalization. Because no matter what system we create, unless the human beings are at the center and the welfare is the primary concern, there would be, unfortunately, voices of protectionism from around the world. So with these words, I thank all of you, and let us give them a big hand. Sorry, administrative announcement. I think we are breaking for lunch and coffee break. Okay, lunch. Oh, sorry, I thought we started early morning. We started post lunch. I think maybe I was feeling hungry. So after the coffee break, we reassemble here at 10 past 3. Thank you.
Request you to kindly submit the feedback forms that have been distributed to all of you and in the counters outside at the registration desk.
Can I start? Hi. I'm going to start. I think Dr. Jianping is arriving soon, so I'm going to start. But before starting discussion, I just want to reiterate what the RIS organizer said at this moment, just a few moments ago. The questionnaire you are on your hands. It's very important for us. We are going to get a budget based upon your assessment. So please hand in your assessment formats to the box outside the room before leaving the meeting room. That is very important. So now Dr. Jianping has arrived, so I'm going to start this session 2. Session 2's subject is service sector. That is a very important sector, as you learned from session 1. I think trade liberalization is going to have much more implication in the service sector. rather than in the manufacturing sector. Actually, service sector is a key sector to enhance the competitiveness of the manufacturing sector today. And also there are lots of, a wide range of service sectors. It's traditional sectors, but also the sectors related to high-tech sectors, which is related to what we call digital society. On behalf of Editor-in-Chief of Japan Spotlight, I would like to, at this context, mention about Japan Spotlight's articles. For the most recent issue, we highlighted digital society. There you can find some articles related to our discussion points. And also, we circulated our annual review of the Japan Spotlight of the year of 2017. And there on page 11, in particular, there is a very interesting article, very deeply related to our subject of this session. The title is Competition Will Enhance Service Sector Growth Potential in Developing Asia. That is the interview article with the distinguished young economist working for Asian Development Bank. This one. This one. Okay, having said so, it's time is precious, and we have only 5 minutes. 5 minutes for each panelist's intervention. So I'm going to skip.